Corey. I am going to present to you today a bit about the project I've worked on. I call it Guess Who, and this is basically a presentation on my journey making this chat app game. So without further ado, let's hop in. Basically, a little overview of my sort of journey here. I kind of broke down into four main steps. I have a problem and a solution. So basically, I kind of asked the question, could an app help us to get to know each other better? And I also then, of course, answered that question, came up with an idea, and from there made a design and used a one-pager as my template to make a user story, come up with visual graphic design for it, and look into the technology a bit that I would use. And a next sort of major step for me was really refining the MVP, minimal viable product, just to make sure that I knew exactly what was most important to achieve or accomplish so that I have something working. And then, of course, the next big step was actually building the app, learning a bit about the technology I was going to use that I'll get into shortly, and, of course, trying to get everything functioning to have my MVP. So the first, of course, major step is identifying a problem and hopefully coming up with a good solution. 2020 began a whole new era of working from home, as many of you all know, and we basically have looked at trends kind of changing for everyone, where we have more and more remote workers. I found some data, this is specific to the US, but I think this is a pretty global phenomenon where we saw six-figure salaries, for example, basically having an increase from 18% in 2021 to 36% in remote opportunities. And basically, data suggests 25% of all jobs in North America would be remote by the end of 2022, and that this trend would be continuing. So basically, you can see a graph here just showing as well that there's quite a steep increase in the number of remote jobs. And as you can expect, this would have some impact on company culture. So the question I was kind of noticing or wanting to get at is what's the problem? And I noticed that in my research and also just anecdotally, that when you have virtual or remote teams, there's naturally a geographical dispersion that entails certain cultural differences, and social bonds are more difficult to achieve. All this generates a series of difficulties for communication between members and emotional relationships. So in short, it definitely changes the team dynamic, and it can be a bit more challenging to get to know each other when you work remotely or we're working on a remote team. So to quote Duke Ellington, a problem is a chance for you to do your best. In this case, that's exactly what I aim to do. Question that I arrived at then is, how can an app help remote teams to get to know each other better? So I came up with an idea. Basically, I kind of combined four sort of separate solutions in my mind into one idea. The ideas are basically a chat application. So this is kind of straightforward as a way for remote colleagues to communicate, mixed with some sort of conversation starter, which ultimately led me to the idea of having icebreaker questions, so random questions that can serve as prompts for people to talk about something, and then mixing that with a bit of a game aspect where you could have colleagues chat together anonymously and then try to guess who they've been chatting to after a certain period. So this kind of was my idea. This, of course, led me to then trying to design it and get into the specifics a bit of what this would look like. So I came up with a user story, which is basically, I want to join a chat with my team. I press a button from that sort of lobby chat, which would let me enter a one-on-one chat where I can then generate these icebreaker questions and answer them anonymously with one of my colleagues so we can kind of have a conversation. And then when a certain amount of time has passed, at the end of the sort of game or period, we can guess who we've been speaking to in this conversation. So I kind of mapped out what the lobby would look like. It's pretty much a straightforward sort of chat interface. You can see who's online before the game begins. And then when you start the game, you'll enter anonymous, or you'll see your name, participant names become anonymous. And there's a generate button at the bottom on the right. And there's also something additional I added, which I thought would give it a little bit of a fun aspect to it, is that there would be moods, or you could just call it categories, which give you a certain type of prompt. So for example, if you select like a laughing emoji face, it will probably be a somewhat funny icebreaker question. If you select the airplane, it would be like a travel related icebreaker question, etc. So each of you can choose what types of icebreaker questions you might want to have asked. And yeah, as far as how we would map out kind of the data and the flow of everything, this was kind of the rough idea. It's a little overwhelming at first, but if you focus on the large square on the bottom left, the bottom left big square basically shows what's going on, because that's just repeated 2 more times, and it's just representing the flow of data in a one-on-one chat. And yeah, it just shows how users can engage with each other in a conversation or engage with prompts that appear in the conversation. Of course, I went over this one-pager with your bowl and Abi, and it was a bit like this at one point, trying to explain what all was going on, which led me to realize the importance of making a good MVP. And I would give a shout out to Abi and your bowl especially, because they reviewed my idea in detail and both helped me kind of refine the MVP a little bit, which had some originally additional features in mind that I ultimately decided were not critical to making this happen. So thank you both for a lot of good feedback. And ultimately, we boiled it down to the most important things that have to be made to make this idea viable are having one-on-one chats and then having icebreakers. After I had sort of thought about it, I ended up also adding to the MVP that we still should have a chat room lobby as well. Reason being that I want participants to start a game together so that you kind of know who was online when you start the game, because if you don't really know who was online, or if there's any confusion over like who was part of the game, obviously that kind of makes it a bit difficult, or would be more confusing about guessing who you're talking to on your team. So it's good to kind of start the game as a team, and that's why I also decided we should have a lobby before the one-on-one chats begin. So that was my MVP, and now it's time to build it. So definitely learned a lot along the way. I kind of boiled my process down to I ask questions and try to research what I don't know about how to implement something, and then ultimately try to implement something. So doing some coding. Eventually there's going to be something that I get stuck on. I don't know how to do it, or my code's not working, or there's a bug. This part is always very difficult. I eventually, if I can't get through the issue, I sometimes will review my priorities and decide whether I should switch to a different issue, or, is what I'm working on a blocker? If it's not, I might come back to it later. If it is a blocker, then of course I might escalate alternative strategies to find help or ask questions to the team, etc. And basically this process just repeats as I go through every step of building it. The resources I used, of course, colleagues, our classmates, YouTube tutorials were super helpful for things I'd never done before, like some of the tech I used, which I'll cover in a moment. Stack Overflow, obviously, also MDN and docs pages for some of the tech I was using. And also in recent months, ChatGPT has been helpful. I find ChatGPT gives quite a bit of unreliable or sketchy code, so I don't think it's so great for just copy and paste. I've definitely found that you can get ideas though from ChatGPT, or sometimes it'll give you one useful line that was something you never thought of about how you can implement something. So it's been a pretty useful tool for when I'm really stuck or need some kind of alternative ideas than what's available on the docs and stuff. So a big part of the tech that I used to implement this was, since it's a chat application, I wanted to use something that would be ideal for real time, and WebSockets are basically a low latency way to have real time data exchange. Instead of doing like a typical fetch request, you could use WebSockets, and it's bidirectional, it's low latency, and it's as I understand, become pretty common for any sort of chat application or real-time. So Socket.io is an API that lets you use WebSockets with JavaScript or TypeScript. And I'd never used it before. I actually had never heard of it before, so decided to dive right in and do something new. You can see this is like my very simple pieces of my server code and simple piece of client code. And yeah, you basically create a socket connection, and then you from there can do these socket emit requests and socket on requests to listen to emitted requests. And you just kind of communicate back and forth between the client and the server. It's pretty straightforward, although I'll show you a bit how that got complicated for me later. As far as actually making the results, this was basically my first test. It was pretty ugly, and it only showed up for the other person when I sent the message, so there was a lot to figure out, but something was finally working. I think this was end of last week, roughly. So yeah, I realized early on that I need to, in order to have lobbies, and separate rooms, I need to understand how to implement a room. So I made it so at first you could just type a room and join a room, and this would control who can talk to who. Then from there, I kind of built out the very first lobby, which is just kind of the default lobby room under the hood. And I put in a little bit of CSS for my sanity. And then I found, as a general pro tip for anyone, and I'm sure you all have found this as well, that logs are a huge help. I was constantly having to track like which chat was in what room, and like were the messages being sent correctly. I had a lot of problems early on with messages only showing up for one person. So just trying to figure out what's going on. It was a really big help doing a lot of console logs. And you can see some of the data I was sending there. Eventually I got questions implemented. So these are the icebreaker questions. I put them in the form of a chat bot. It's essentially the same as a normal message sent by one of the users, but there's a few small differences under the hood, and it's handled automatically when someone presses the generate button instead of you typing into the input and pressing send. So eventually got to the point of putting some styles and a sign-in. The sign-in basically is important because you need to know your name. So when you're in the lobby, everyone knows who's online. And also, if you want to be the admin, you need to have an admin in your name, so that you can actually start the game for everyone. So the admin has the ability to basically start the game and make sure everyone's ready to start. When the admin starts the game, or actually this is the lobby, you can see on the bottom right, the admin gets that little green button. If you're not the admin, you don't get the button, but otherwise you can talk in the lobby before the game starts and see who's joined. And then when you press the button, you have the categories on the right with the emojis. The ability, everyone has that ability to generate a random question. The admin has the ability to end the game for everyone. There's also a timer at the top, which you can see is set to 10 minutes. So your conversation is by default going to be 10 minutes. And you can see the usernames are now anonymous, so I don't know who I'm talking to unless we choose to reveal ourselves at the end. And finally, I put some additional styling. I tried to make the colors feel a little more balanced and organize the buttons a bit better on the right. And yeah, as a little thing I'll mention, I was going to style this differently. I was going to try Tailwind CSS and Preline, but I just ran out of time. The game logic was definitely a challenge at a few spots, so I ended up just using Forma 36 because I was familiar with it. And yeah, hopefully it looks fairly nice. And so when I was done, I obviously thought, what are some lessons? First of all, server is the source of truth. There were many times where I implemented code that was basically on the client side. And like an example was I early on created like questions and put them in like this sort of database file. And I eventually realized that I was only getting questions for the person who asked. And this was because I had not put it in the server for everyone in the chat with me to receive the questions. So basically TLDR, most things I did ended up having socket requests to the server, data was sent, and then the server needs to store it and send it back to everyone who needs to know. So make sure that the server has that source of truth was a theme that I kept having to remind myself as I built this. Another thing is experimenting with what I rendered. So right now, I kind of currently have it running like a sequence where you have like your initial sign-in page, then you have your lobby room, then you go into a chat room, and everything is sort of like circular, because then after the chat, you're basically going back to the lobby. And I kind of realized that if I had more time, I would experiment with trying to have the lobby and the chat kind of like ternary options that you could render from a sort of higher component. Because right now I have some issues with ending the game and how when you return to the lobby, it doesn't fully work at that point. So I believe it's something related to that. And in short, I realized that there may be a better way to structure how I was rendering some of these components. Being more modular, my code is not very modular. This is mostly because I was just hurrying and trying to get this done. If I had more time, I would definitely try to separate some pieces. It's a lot of code. I can imagine if I gave this to one of my classmates or colleagues, I would see reactions like this if they had to work with it. The worst bug I ran into was missing a socket join when I have people separate into pairs. This was a brutal lesson for me. I just did not fully understand how sockets were working under the hood. Basically, the takeaway is that if you have lots of rooms and you have people joining like a lobby, but then going into other rooms, you need to make sure that their socket ID is also understanding that messages are no longer going to a central lobby room. You need the socket IDs also have to have a join into a different space. So basically, I didn't realize that. So even though all of my code on top of sockets was kind of working, under the hood, I didn't also change where the requests were going. And so this led to tons of pain. I basically had like a whole day wasted trying to figure this out. And thankfully, Arol kind of spotted this at some point. So thank you, Arol, for the help with that, and definitely helped me learn a bit more about how Socket IO works. Speaking of Socket IO, expectations were that it would be pretty simple. This is what they show on their website, and it is pretty simple. But obviously, in a real project, you're going to make things use a lot more complexity than what they show on basic examples. So I kind of found that in reality, there was a lot of requests, and it was at points getting a little confusing, like which request is for who, and like kind of getting lost with the rooms over like which errors am I tracking for, is it lobby errors or is it room errors? So in short, don't underestimate how much work certain things are going to take. That's basically my biggest takeaway. Have a realistic MVP because projects take time. And especially if you're doing something new, you may not realize what problems you'll run into along the way. So yeah, that's my project and the result and a bit about my journey. So thank you all, and hope you enjoyed it. Any questions?
When you say that one of the problems that you had is implementing things of the server in the client, yeah. So I suppose that this comes from working kind of unstructured or chaos work. Meaning, I think that it's more a comment than a question. But maybe, do you think some structured work as in, first I'm going to do this version of the backend, and this is the outcome that I want to get? It's like, think about, I know it's Socket.io, but think about an API. Have like a clear idea of what the API will look like, and this is why we have Postman, no? So we can verify only the server, and then work first in there, and then you move to the other side. Okay, so a little bit like you see, maybe you're going to be able to see better the separation of concerns between the client and the server. So,
yeah, makes sense. I think probably I could have outlined a few ideas over what needs to go where as well. I think a little more planning of the way that files would be structured would be maybe a way to do that.
Okay, the second one is like also as a comment, like regarding the code. So working with Socket.io, actually it reminds me like the product, the result. It reminds me to when we worked with kind of jQuery or like vanilla JavaScript back in the day, that you were like, I don't know, button on click, and then you put the business logic inside the callback of the on click, which is like very similar to what it's happened to Socket.io in this case. So I think that also as a comment maybe can help you working with this, having a very having like an idea of or being very having very present to work on a declarative way over an imperative way. Okay, kind of what React is doing to the implementation of UI. Okay, so instead of what I was saying about all the components talking to other components, or all the events talking to all the other data in the middle of the callback, you kind of change a global state, and that global state, it's propagated, and every component or every socket, like an event listener, responds to that change in the correct way. Okay, and I think that can help you in cleaning that Socket.io mess that you were talking about. Okay?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think, that kind of ties into what I was saying. Like if I had more time or did it again, I would try to design, kind of like high level game state and how all the files could be updated based on this kind of global game state. Because it is kind of a global status that's tracking everything. I just implemented it like very individually. So makes sense.
Hey Corey, so thanks a lot for the presentation. I just had a question. Are you planning to continue working on this application and publish it for users? I think we would love to use it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, if anyone wants to try it, I haven't really had a proper beta test, alpha test. So we could do it if people like it. I'd be happy to try and wrap it up in some form. Because I think it'd be interesting to see everyone's feedback. Like, is this actually fun, or is it like sounded cool but it wasn't that interesting? It'd be cool to try it. So. Yeah, I would definitely be interested if a good reception in trying to wrap it up in some way. Yeah.
Okay. That would be super cool. Thanks.
Corey?
Hey.
So how would this application scale? Like, what kind of load can it handle right now, and what might you do if you wanted to be able to have more load?
Well, I can definitely say on a micro level, there's things in the game that are going to consider that if you have a lot of people, like there's a few things I would say at a micro level, like the amount of users. Like if you have like a ton of users, is the UI going to break, or like things like that not going to show up correctly? The pairing logic, if you have an odd number of users, is supposed to put 3 people together in one chat, but I never tested that, so I need to figure out if that's working. As far as like how many users, I don't know if there's any practical limitation. I'm sure there is, and maybe I should even put one because you might affect performance. From the back end and just like, I guess how we could scale it. I mean, right now it doesn't have a database. I don't know if it would be a good thing to have one if it's going to be something we would like ship. So some of this gets beyond, I think, what I even know the answer to. But I would imagine at a minimum there would be a debate over like whether data needs to be stored, especially if it's like lots of people playing the game for an extended period in even one company or something. And also, there's probably some questions about this, like from my end right now, everything's happening just on my machine. So I have to figure out like what is a sensible way, I guess, to make it scale so that like I don't know a company can run this. It's not like depending on just Corey or someone's single computer handling everything. And to be honest, I don't know the answer to a lot of these questions, because I haven't built anything of that scale before, so I probably need some guidance or have to do a lot of research to figure out what would be like. I'm sure there's a lot of options. So yeah, I thought a tiny bit about that, but I don't actually think I know many of the answers as of right now. It'd be a good conversation to have with you all and see what you think as well.
Definitely good thoughts.
All right. My God. I was going to say, please don't kick the mic, and I'm the first one to score a goal. Okay, so I don't know if you see me. I think that you see me through that camera. Okay, Cory. So now instead of the comments that were like more like the questions or anything like that, a little bit of feedback on the presentation. So first of all, good presentation intro. I think that it was when I'm referring to don't go straight to the demo. I'm referring to this one. It's like build some hype, yeah. Like make the audience understand what's the problem, but not only understand, but also empathize with the problem. Yeah, understand and make it yours. I would say that in general, so congratulations for that. But I have to say that in general, I think it was like double or even a little bit more double the time that the presentation was expected to be. Although I enjoyed it, so that's actually the bad side, good side, yeah, because I was like, okay, this is getting long, but yeah, I'm interested in the next slide and what you're saying. The only structural problem that I have is that I didn't see any demo per se, yeah, and then I see that. By the way, I have huge problems here. The audience can see I have huge problems on knowing where to see. Okay, because I cannot watch Cory and then I'm like talking to you. So there was like missing a demo. I think that the most effective way is like first starting with like hyping up a little bit and making audience empathize, and then explain a little bit the solution. And when they have understood the solution, then and here it is, yeah, and you can see it. I know that doing a demo in your kind of app, live demo, is going to be difficult, but then you can record it. Yeah, you can record your screen while you're doing the demo, and you can say that here this happened and that happened. And also, this is a way that you have to add some storytelling. Yeah, instead of user one, user two, or test one, test two, you can add like a little bit of backstory there, or you can add a little bit of jokes if you want. It's like a perfect way, like a perfect moment to put some humor into it. And that demo goes before the technical details or the insights, because then we're able to see like, oh, this was the problem, this is the solution, this is the idea that I had, this is the product that I created, and hold your horses, because to get here I had like this and that, because we're an engineering audience, and then we're all interested on that thing. And then I have to say, on the side of the insights, very good job. I really enjoyed. This is why the reason why. Seriously, it's like I'm talking to a superior being. So Josh, Cory.
I'm out there somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Cory. So on the insights, yeah, it's like it took a little bit too long, but the insights is what like saved that thing on being like quite long, because they were like pretty nice. You were like shameless to show your code and to show like what a mess that was, and that actually is what is super useful, because anybody can see now. Careful when going with Socket.io, things can get out of hand really fast. And then we can talk about declarative versus imperative approaches and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so thank you for that. But I'm going to end with usually that's rare. I'm going to end with the downside, this round of feedback, because it gets like a little bit of humor. Please don't show in any of your screenshots, don't show a TS ignore. Okay, just remove it, please. Remove that thing.
I was laughing about that because I was like, I actually debated removing it for the screenshot. I was like, let's just be honest. It's there, I gave up on that one. But yeah.
No, I understand. It's difficult to get it out because if you remove the TS ignore, then you get a red line,
Right.
no?
Right.
But still, maybe what you can do is to go to the Visual Code settings and just disable the I don't know, the TypeScript correction. You have resources. Yeah, you have resources. No, just in order to make in order to make the screenshot, okay? I don't want you to disable TypeScript. We are building up. We are okay. No, just that. Be careful with that. It's a funny note, but be careful with that on professional. Well, this is a professional as well, but on in the company presentations. Olga wants to say something.
Yeah.
Wants to add something. Well, I'm finished, so you can.
Yeah, I mean, I figured. So, just a quick comment from my side, and more for today, it's absolutely fine, but it's more towards more, as Arol says, more like professional presentations, or when talking to a recruiter or wherever you're going to talk about your project. Yeah. So the question Abby asked you about the how are you going to make this scale? You kind of gave a long answer, and part of it was perfect, but then another part was you shouldn't say that. So for instance, when you said, this is something I've never worked with, you shouldn't say that. So just sort of give it a more generic answer as you did, which is this is still something that I have to figure out. There are multiple options to do that. If you can give more specifics, great, but no. So I was just saying, yeah, you can sort of sell yourself as more knowledgeable than you actually are in the matter, Anyway, you got my point.
Yeah, I think I got it. That's a good point. Yeah, I agree. And I think it was know your audience. I know you all, so I figured I might just say areas I'm not sure about. But I agree. Totally agree. If it's an interview or something, I don't want to just be blabbering about how I don't know what's next. So yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Corey.
Yeah, thank you all. Yeah. Like I said, happy to try it with you all sometime. So I guess
we will. And actually, I think that what I was saying. Have you think on continuing? I mean, we have to work on that, and we have to actually make it useful because I think it's a nice icebreaker. So yeah, definitely, we have to find some time to work on it. Next is Ruben.
So let's do a very small trick that we are supposed to do every single day. So we came to class. I'm done with this part, but there are always going to be people doing this. And every day you are going to have different warm-ups, and you work on that warm-ups by yourself, but at the same time, your classmates are also working on that. So it's a very weird case that people can relate as a team, but they are not actually working in the project as a team. So what happened when I have some doubt or actually finish it and I want to see for example, Cory's answer, because I'm curious, how did he do it? The official way that I can do is I come to GitHub. I don't know if everybody here, mostly from the junior part, know this, but I go to GitHub, I go to the arol.dev organization, I find the repository I want to check, I go for pull request. Of course, I have to have access to the repository. And in here, I can see the different solutions of my classmates. So I can, for example, I can check Cory's, because Cory's most of the time have very clear comments on his logic, so it's very easy to follow. But if you realize this is a lot of steps for doing something very simple. So that's my project about. It's like taking that side of GitHub, and instead of like a proxy, yeah, you can think about it like a proxy UI that the only function is to take this part and bring it up for us to be more simple. So yeah, this is the only thing you have to do is log in, and when you're logged, and in this case for this demo, I'm just using four repositories. But for example, I want to check the warmups of best trading. So here I have the Corey solution and I have your solution. There should be my solution here, but it seems like I skipped this homework. I'm sorry. So inside the pull request, I can see the different files and the changes it has. So any doubt I have or any reference I need to make from here is quite top level and easy to find. In the case of having like more complex exercises, we can still see our partner solutions. This is an MVP, so it's quite limited on the source of the limitation and the configuration of the UI. But well, this is pretty much it. You know, it's like taking those 5 steps and turning them into one step. This is like pretty much the project. Is there? I'm sorry, is there any question? Thank you.
Yes. What did you learn from doing this project, or what will be an insight after doing this project?
Yeah. Okay. I would say that kind of to go again with what Cory said before. It's very important to like have a real measurement of what new things are you going to try with what project, and you know at the end the result can be a positive, be a negative, and I took that maybe it's not the best idea to combine more than 2 new technologies, ideas, or architecture, whatever is driving you to try in the project. That will be one of the main insights, because you don't know at the long term if they are going to be compatible, so to speaking. So one of course, that might be always because of my low experience with the tool. But one thing that I really doesn't click with me is that I went for another alternative to REST API. I went for a DRPC server. Then it works with procedures. So a procedure you can think about is just like calling an RPC procedure is the same that touching a REST API endpoint. It's just send a request and get a response. But in this case, it's type safe. What I didn't like is that I have to install tools like SOD for using the definitions of the DRPC. And maybe it does make sense, but where I'm standing right now, it doesn't make any sense, because for the rest of the application, I'm using TypeScript type definition. So I was expecting my procedures to be able to take some kind of TypeScript interface or something like that in order to work and having like the same standard. But so this a library that I'm just using here in the whole project is just being used here in the procedures to define the input types. So yeah, I will say that maybe not going with the real thing with many technologies, kind of doing small demos before. Another insight that I had is like this is one from the UI perspective. This is a second iteration. The first iteration we wouldn't have like the top navigation. and we wouldn't have the file navigation. Instead of that, this will be like nested accordions, like one tag for every file, and this will be like kind of mega menu or something like that. It wasn't usable. It was easy to make, but it wasn't usable. So I end up like kind of researching a bit of that, and the idea is that you don't nest the same kind of navigation UI. You kind of try to mix it up. So you put some scroll, and you put some accordion, and then you do some side navigation. That way you can keep it like comfortable to the user. And I actually feel it using the first iteration demo and the second iteration demo. I can really see the difference. If anybody wants, I can like go to an old branch like in other time and show you the old iteration.
My question is, how does the app determine which exercises or GitHub repositories it should be displaying?
Yeah, at this point, we are, again, this is an MVP. So instead of having like register your organization or anything like that, we are just doing our organization, arol.dev. So if any user that tries to log in into this application, it will fail if it doesn't belong to arol.dev. I can prove it to you. I have like an incognito tab with another. Let me move this with another GitHub account that it is not mine, and we can see we have not any organization. And if I try to log in, I'm not getting inside. Of course, it will have like more of a UI feedback, like, hey, you have not authenticated in any group, in any of the groups that exist inside this application. So maybe you need to go and talk with this and that person. But yeah, that's the way I'm handling authentication and know the pull request. The exact repositories now that I'm having access, those are like for demo purposes are just those 4. But yeah, you can use different techniques kind of to have a trace of what user can see what repository.
Okay, yeah, it seems like we have like the noise is coming from there. I don't know why. It's like some kind of static or something. Sorry for that. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is like, I tell you that I just constructed a car that it's like, actually it runs more than any other car or most of the cars. And actually, yeah, it runs better than a Ferrari and has like the best spring system. But it's no big deal, you know. So he's like, it's fine. Yeah. It's like, what the fuck? I want to know how you constructed that car. I want to know what problems you had on the engineering. Ruben, you had an amazing project and you didn't sell it. It's like,
wow. 5 minutes, man. 5 minutes.
Like, no, don't misunderstand me. You did one of the bravest things you can do. That is like go and show the product. But we are like the audience is mostly an engineering audience. Okay. So we want to, I understood the motivation, all right. So congratulations on that. The demo was amazing, but it's half of the presentation. What's the stack? Like, sorry, did you understand? You use RPC? And that's one of the things that goes to the stack for everybody to see. Wait, what's that? We want to know more about that, Ruben. Can you please make a talk later? Or something like that. What kind of, how did you connect it to GitHub? What are the problems that you got? You got problems. Don't go into, they want to learn from that. It's like, careful with going with GitHub. the permissions are hell. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Because, right? They were, right? Okay.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you. They are hungry to understand that. And okay, no, it was not a disaster. Yeah, so I'm not saying this because Olga said she didn't agree with that at all. But no, it's not a disaster. It's an okay presentation for an amazing project.
For me, like, the more reason, like, since you have such a brilliant, like, project, and it's so much more than we've just seen, and in front of this audience, like, you could show so much more.
Let's put it straight. The part that he had to show, okay, was brilliant. But it's like you're playing a football, like your team is playing a football match, yeah? And it's like Barca, okay? The passes are brilliant. We lost 5-0, but the passes, mamma mia, yeah? Just one part. I'm not saying you lost 5-0, I think you won, but you won from the minimum. You won from 1-0, yeah, Ruben? So, and actually that you were prepared to win 5-0 or do like the most goals in a match ever, no? So yeah, okay, then we agree. Yes, it's like, I think that the most important is like, when you're in that position in which the project, you got into in that really good position, it's one of the most difficult things to put that thing aside. Okay? To put that thing like, yeah, here's the project. It works perfectly. Actually, you can use it right now. Yeah? But that's not the important thing. Yeah? The important thing is that the journey that I did. Yeah? And I did this thing and that other thing. That's the complicated stuff. Yeah? But I think that you can like teach us in here what's about all that journey, and also that will make you, like, on the eyes of the audience, be like a brilliant engineer, and that actually outside, like when we finish this session, everybody's going to try to reach you in order to talk a little bit or for you to help or anything. That is one of the goals that we might have here. Okay, so keep working on that. What you did on the project is amazing. I know how hard was it in certain parts. So that's it. That's all I have to say. Okay, congratulations on the project. Let's keep working on the presentation.
What I was going to say is that also, like, let's remember, like, why we're doing these presentations in the first place, and why is it important to communicate, not only build the application and learn yourself the journey, but also present, like, why we're doing this. Not to learn to build any slides. I don't care you have slides, for instance. I don't care about any of that. But you have to think that you're going to have to do this again when you're talking to recruiters. You have to and engineers in a recruiting process, right? You're going to have to show your project and explain what I did here, what are the interesting things about it, what were my challenges, how I stepped over them and learned from that, and like. You have to explain on that and sell yourself as a brilliant engineer you are. And also in teams. So when working already in a company, you're going to have to show your work to your team, to your boss, to your manager, whoever. And the same. You're going to have to sell yourself. And that's key to actually show like how, like what it is behind it. So because the way you presented it to a person who wasn't there inside with you, it may seem as, wow, that was easy. So maybe why did he spend so much time on it? That seems so easy. And it's not. And it's so much more important to explain why it's so difficult, what is involved, like how it's working on the other side, what technologies are involved. So the importance of this is crucial. So that's why I'm saying like the more impressive the project, the more you can talk about it, the more crucial it is to actually do it. Yeah. So we'll do that again. We'll make sure to do that again. Other than that, I mean, congratulations, Ruben. This is brilliant, and yeah, we didn't expect less from you. Thanks a lot.
likewise, it's like finishing in the good side. Everybody's impressed, okay, and me too. So sorry for before, but good job. Okay, cool. So let's continue with the in campus. Okay, so maybe I say Shannon first, then Manel.
So my project is a knockout league game, and it's by me. Okay. First of all, do you want to know how to play a game? This is a real game that I play with my real friends, and it's about real American football that's really happening. The game of American football takes place over 18 weeks. We have 32 teams, and all teams are playing every single week. And the game that we are talking about today that I play with my friends is hosted by a person that we call a commissioner, which is like our most popular friend. And he invites us all to play. And then each week, us players pick one team per week and tell the commissioner which team we think will win that week. And the player cannot ever pick that team again. Don't listen to that slide. It's a liar. And if your team loses, you get knocked out of the game. And I feel like I've very much simplified everything about football, everything about this game. So, yes. Do you want to see what the web game looks like? Yes. Okay. Yes, it's very detailed, very elaborate game. So essentially, this is our homepage, and if you want to take the view of the commissioner, the most important person of this game, you can see that they see the status of how things are going for the players. Arol, Olga, myself, Manel, etc. And this is the message that was most recent. And I want to write my weekly update, so I'm going to go, hi, to left. The rest don't know football. And I click post. Great. I can go back to the home page and notice that as you hover over the buttons, they change color. That'll come back. So now if you're a player, you can go in and see the message from your commissioner insulting you and see the pool. So this is the status of the game. So you can see when your friends got knocked out, if you're still in it, and yeah, that's it. That's the game. Very elaborate, super cool. So you saw what the game looks like, and who all wants to play? Everybody wants to play the game. Great. And I know what you're thinking. How can I pick teams? I'm not an American. I don't know anything about football. So I will explain to you how to play American football, and I want you to imagine that you and your friends have a team, and your team starts here, where you can see the football on the football field, and it's about the 20-yard line, and you want to get the ball there to the touchdown where there's a smiley heart emoji. That's 100 meters. We're going to call them meters instead of yards, even though that's disgusting. You get 4 tries to get the ball 10 meters, and then once you get the ball 10 meters, you get to do 4 tries again to get 10 meters again, and then you repeat until you get a touchdown, and that's how you get points, and you win the game. And I know what you're thinking. Shannon, that kind of sounds like a project. Do you want to do a metaphor where you, Shannon, are the quarterback, and the project is a touchdown? And like everybody around you is like players on your team? Absolutely I do. That's why I did the presentation this way. Our opponent is reality. It's very scary when you don't know how to code or do a project or play American football. It's okay. We've got a lot of tools on our side. We've got all of our important data is in Postgres and Prisma and Google Sheets. The reason it has the poop emoji is because that's what it sounds like, and also that's what it is. we also use React with our JavaScript, and TypeScript, Node, and Tailwind you'll see, trust me. And as you watch this presentation, if you feel bored, you can watch the football go down the football field so you know when it's almost over, okay? And also, Manel is my key player right now because he always tells me I talk too fast. So Manel, if I talk too fast, please give me some sort of symbol. Okay. First, the Google Sheet is really rendered inside, like deep inside in JSON, which we extract with an API. And sure, this part in the middle looks horrible. You can't understand it, but you can reformat it so it's actually legible and you can see what's going on. This time, our key details were the values that were in the cells as well as the formats of the cells. And to transform that, we, from the Google Sheets to actually some sort of table that we could understand, it was like a puzzle. This is probably my favorite part of code, is when there's like something that's most similar to a logic puzzle that you would play, you know, in a math class or on the newspaper, okay? Next, I'm going to talk about data storage. So we are using Postgres in the class because it's free, and this over here by Rita, she was very helpful. But how we get our Prisma Studio that looks into our Postgres, we set it up pretty simply using our terminal, and then with the data storage underneath Abi, there is several files, and I've never seen them all together, where we are setting up what the import looks like to our actual server side, and then also what it looks like that we're manipulating to like kind of create a table so that it'll have spaces for all of our information to go. And I'm saying table right now, and I realize that that's confusing because I'm actually talking about the message part, because that's like way smaller to look at than the table Google Sheets part, because that's crazier to look at. And then on the client side, you can get it using the island of nothing with no people on it, where you can actually retrieve the information from your Postgres database and see it eventually when you actually know what you're doing in the front end of the user environment. Okay. For me, I did a router where there was multiple pages, and this is the key of you can organize it using multiple files and then extract the information that you want, which has like how it looks, how it's set up, all the data inside it, and then that way you'll have something on your homepage so you can click to multiple buttons and go to different places, just like a real website in real life. And in order to make the front end pretty, I used Tailwind. Tailwind's pretty cool, and I don't know if you remember or memorized that slide I showed you of all of the data stack. Well, I didn't have CSS on that because mostly what you're doing here, you don't have to deal with CSS. Tailwind's super cool because you can just ignore CSS, and you can actually see what's happening without having to click on other things in VS Code, which I thank God for that. Whoever made Tailwind's a really nice person. Anyway, that's a touchdown for me because I've made it pretty and it works. And thank you so much. If you have any questions, holla at your girl. Okay.
I was curious about the Google Sheets part and like connecting. What does that process look like?
Oh, it looks awful. So the Google Sheets API is, let me see if I can even find it in my VS Code. So importing the sheets from Google Sheets, this is like just all of this section. And in order to turn it into something legible, you're connecting and you have to have an authorization key from your Google Sheets because everything is tied to your Google account. And you send that in with your spreadsheet ID, and this is all hidden inside your env file. And you return what actually, like, you remember that JSON black and white text that was in the middle of the screen there? It's actually a whole lot longer than that, even for as few or as small of a table as you saw. It's like so much longer than that. So in order to transform that into something that's more useful, we basically had to select the key components of that elaborate JSON and transform it into something that it would only have the details that we were interested in.
Thanks a lot for the presentation, Shannon. I was going to ask you if you would be doing this project, like knowing all that you know now, is there something you would do differently? Is this Google Sheet part, or is there anything else?
Absolutely, the Google Sheet part is the first thing that I'll tackle on the next iteration of this project, is to have the data housed in something that's much more scalable. Google Sheets is appropriate possibly for a demo, but even that, it was supposed to be an easy fix to get information quickly, but it was the opposite of that. It was incredibly difficult to get information from Google Sheets, and I also don't think that it's useful for most organizations. Most organizations are going to be in Excel if you needed to use something to get file information, but we want to, like, all organizations are moving away from that. They really want to be more cloud-based with their data, and so I would target AWS next, because that is one of the most common, but Azure is another alternative of cloud-based web hosting, and so either of those would be much better to use than Google Sheets.
Nothing. I was going to comment that, okay, I understand the point, but I think that it was like a great MVP decision. Instead of Amazon Web Service and cloud-based, I think it's good for, it's kind of that startup decision, because it's not only about the data.
Yeah.
And you're not concerned about the scaling up. You're concerned about growing. Maybe that's for later. But one thing is that you didn't change, for example, the way the commissioner works.
Correct.
So I think that, like, looking back, like you would start with this. I would like to say kudos actually to going with this approach. Now it's the time to change and to scale.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another reason that I chose Google Sheets is it is something that is web-based, so being able to log into it without having to burrow into a private computer system for this situation was definitely better. And that's why I didn't go with Excel for the initial backend.
Cool. I was also going to ask if you would continue working on this project now, which we'll see, but what would your next priority features be now? Like, what would be the next steps?
So if I move the data to a more normalized database situation inside AWS or Azure, I would be able to do much more intricate features so that the players can actually submit their choice for the week, and then the commissioner can hide those choices from everyone until they publish them with their hilarious weekly message, and it will be much more organizable, and there will also be the potential for having multiple commissioners with multiple games. So that would be absolutely my first priority. Avi had the great idea that you should really query something to help show which teams lost for the week and have that source from an external location that is probably maintained by, in this case, the NFL, which is the league where we play real American football. And it's the only league that matters. Other leagues exist, but they are dumb. And nobody talks about them, except for the players and their families, I guess. So it's true. If there is a newly released NFL API where we could source that information. They're currently having technical difficulties with authorizing users to query their API, and without being too rude, the NFL is extremely protective of everything in every aspect of their product, even the information about their product. So we will have to do some workarounds likely in the short term. So I will be creating and managing that database myself until NFL gets it together and has an API that's actually user-friendly. Yeah. So I think it would be really cool if I could set it up so that it queries gambling services. So you can see what is the point spread, which is like real American football, you score a lot of points. There are games where there's like one team gets 30 points, the other team gets 41. So how I usually select my team is I go with whatever matchup has the biggest spread. So like they think that the Cowboys are going to win by 15 points. I'm like, well, then the Cowboys are probably going to win. Maybe not by 15 points, but for the purpose of selecting the team for the week, that's a no-brainer for me compared to the Falcons versus the Eagles, and they only think that the Falcons win by 3 points. Yeah? Sure, that might not be the case, but the gamblers, and they research a lot, if they think that the Cowboys are going to really smash the other opponent into the ground, that's good enough for me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that artificial intelligence will be could make like good predictions?
So, are you asking because you're going to play this next year? Of course you are.
Yeah,
yes?
probably.
Yes, okay. So, the key thing about the artificial intelligence with where it stands right now is you're going to have to get in your pick like for the week very last minute, because what's happening in football, because it's such a violent game, is you don't know if your most important players are going to be kept off the field at a moment's notice. Sometimes you don't know if a player is going to play until 15 minutes before the game starts. And that player can make a huge difference to the team. So, yes, please set up an API connection to artificial intelligence that is focused on football statistics to make your pick, and we'll see how you survive next year's knockout pool. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the last thing about the API. What I understood is that the NFL has like actually quite a good and real-time API, but it's only open for their partners.
So they've opened it up to the public now, but they're having issues with authentication, and like I've tried generating several accounts, and it seems like everything's going fine. You set up your password, and then you go to log in, and you do the email where they say like, please authenticate that you're a real person and this is a real email address. And you do that, and then it says, you need to contact somebody in the service of the NFL. It's about your account, and I'm like, nobody's going to answer my call. What is this?
They're giving it to the media, yeah.
Yeah.
So
But yes, of course, they have it for the media, and the media, they have long-standing partnerships, and they run. Like, football is, real American football is big bucks. It's, they control a lot of, it's basically the only reason why people have live television anymore. Everybody's watching streaming except for football. Entire channels exist because of football. I mean, Abby, you're United States, you can probably attest, especially from Texas, where football is, I don't know, 50% of conversations involve football.
So, nothing. I like the twist on actually getting the data out from the betting platforms.
Yeah.
Betting platforms. So, why didn't you did this is good, but why didn't you do an automatic tool that does that for you, and it already takes what is the biggest spread, not in one platform.
Why do you think I'm taking this class? I want to
So
build
then do it
that
as a
for me
project.
so that I
Then
win
do it
this
as a
one
project.
game with my friends.
But you did a platform for all of them.
No, for
Screw
me.
them.
How am I?
Screw them. It's you have to do like a script that automatically says, I checked 20 betting platforms, and this is the biggest spread of all of them.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, future states where you can subscribe for a fee to get insider information such as this.
Oh, I invest in your play.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Shannon. Okay, so next up, Manel.
Well, hi everyone, I'm Manel, and I'm here to show you my application that it's named Let's Do Dinner, okay? First of all, which is the reason of that application? What I want to achieve with that application? I always have a lot of problems with my friends when we have to get when we have to meet for a dinner or something. It's very difficult. We start doing kind of a lot of WhatsApp messages, and we never get at the point. And then it took weeks to get into that, no? And then we always have discussions at which restaurant we have to go. This one, not the other one. This is too cheap. The other is too expensive. And that's a thing that bothered me. And I was looking for a way to make quick decisions and very easy and just in a short schedule of time. I mean, for the next 7 days, look for a date for meet together. It's okay if not of us we are going to be there, but just to make a kind of poll, to get that information and make it easy and simple. Okay, this is the objective. Then my solution was create this app. Okay. The objective of the app, it was that it was easy to start a pool. You don't have to register. You don't have to make a difficult process. Okay, just with tipping a button or scrolling up, then you can change to the next screen, the next process that I will share with you in a few minutes. And also, since I have already commented, it's the restaurant that it has been chosen randomly between a list of restaurants that we have already set it up before, okay? And for end, it was easy to share the poll and also the result, okay? That means when are we going to have dinner, where, with budget, and who is the responsible to make the reservation to the restaurant, okay? Then I'm going to start with a demo, and then we get a little bit more inside of the project, okay? Then here we have the home, the landing page, with the button of Start the Pool and the link to share the link with the other people, okay? The next step is just to choose the days of the option that we have, okay? Here, for example, it was Friday, Monday, and the next Saturday. Then we can go for the budget. And the idea was to have a kind of bar in order to select a rank of budget. since we have selected budget, we can check the list of the restaurants. Now we cannot add a new restaurant. It's a future feature that we will see in the future. And once we have already see all the restaurants, we can close the pool if we are the admin in that case, and then we have the results. That means the date, the restaurant that has been shown, and the budget. Okay, and we can share the link with with our friends. Okay, the objective at the very beginning was to work with the web API sharing that stuff in order to make it easy to share with WhatsApp or Telegram or something. But as you will see, a very big MVP. At the beginning, I was obliged to make it smaller. Okay. Okay. Then this one was my very first design. Okay. Here you can see all the screens of the process. That means the home. If we had active dinners that we have already started before, then we can see the polls of the state of the polls here. Then we selected the days, the budget. We can add, at the very beginning, I thought it was interesting to add some restaurants into the restaurant list in order to, if we can trade more restaurants that we have, then in order to be able to maintain, I mean. And I realized from not the very beginning, but when I was starting working on it, that it was too much project for get it done in the time I had. Then I started to cut up some things. Okay, that I will show you later. It was supposed to be a very straight way to end with the result. Okay. Here I can show you more or less the technologies I have used. I have been using it. In the front end, I was working with React, TypeScript, Axios, Router, DOM, I don't remember, Router something.
React Router DOM.
Yeah, thank you.
React Router DOM.
And they see UI. Okay, you have already knowledge about that. I'm going to be brief. Here in the front end, we used the very first part in order to set up to control the way we write the code, more or less, the TS and React, and the Axios and the other it's for the router in order to be able to route the endpoints of the front end. And also I have created an API who get in touch or contact with the server in order to retrieve the information of the restaurants, the pools, and the days. Okay, and in the server, it's a standard server with the routers, controllers, and models. And I have been working with TypeScript scores, and Node Express, and NBI. Okay, and here I work with a local database that it was in Postgres, and for sure it communicates with the server by Prisma. Okay, here my more learnings that I learned. It's the most important. Maybe it was to have a realistic MVP product or MVP setup. Okay, because as you can see here at the left, it was the very first MVP that I had, and at the right in red, it's everything the stuff that I had to let it go as a future release in order to be able to add something or to try to add something for the deadline. Okay, at the end, it was quite painful and it was not working 100%. But I realized that one of my first mistakes it was be too ambitious with the MVP product. Okay. Then things to avoid that I have learned here too is do not have clear deadlines for me in order to avoid to break the deadline of the project. That means I work a lot with the backend, okay, and I had a lot of endpoints because I would have a lot of stuff. But then I realized that I will not be able to have the front end at time, and a lot of that endpoints that I have already coded, they were useless. That means I work a lot in the back end, and then I could not be able, I'm not be able to show anything on the front end from that side, okay? And another thing is I had quite difficulties with React DOM router in order to set it up in the front-end part. And now I would try maybe to start with Next.js, because yes, I will have to learn Next.js, but I think that more or less that the hours I will need to learn Next.js would be the same that I have been trying to set up a React DOM router. And now I will try with Next.js. And more or less, yeah, I think more or less it's that, what I want to share with you. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or something, I'm here. I will try to help you gladly. That's dedicated to Martina, that started that kind of ritual to end the presentations with quotes.
What was your number one difficulty, your number one challenge here? Something that was the most difficult thing?
I think it was really the create a realistic MVP. Yeah. Because I start to think, and that would be great if I could do that and that and that and that, and I take a lot of time doing that, and then in the back end I dedicate also a lot of time in that. After that, it's Next.js stuff, React DOM router.
Well, juniors, you hear that? Remember that when you're doing your projects.
In fact, maybe you cannot appreciate here, but it's the red one. It was the very first and very visible, or yes. Now I would go for the right side of the schema, and the left side. It was nice, but it took me too much time to figure it out.
How would you get the cost of the restaurant?
When you're not getting, I mean, you are choosing here. I'm going to change in order to be able to, you see my mouse here in that screen. You are able to choose what is the range of the restaurant you want to go, and then the restaurant selection is random. I mean, you have a list of restaurants, and about them, that list, then the application randomly choose one restaurant that fits with that budget selected.
So the data is already inputted in the app for the restaurants and their price range?
Yeah, that should be. And as a future feature, I was thinking integrate it also with the API of Google in order to kind of add more easily the restaurants from Google API in the database of restaurants. But yes, at the very beginning you have to put it manually.
So I'm going to start with Manuel's feedback, and then I'm going to do Shannon's. That we skipped it. So yeah, overall good presentation. Okay, and coming from someone that doesn't have by far a perfect English, if you're doing an app about polls, you say poll. Yeah, it's like we talked about it. It's like that's the only word that you say correctly. Okay, because saying pool is confuses everyone. It's more like given the streamer you are, that you go every lunch break to stream. That's confusing the. Okay. That's confusing the crap out of us. So yeah, and then there's another thing that I already said many times. Okay, careful with that. Don't use ellipses. Like you don't use ellipses anywhere yourself. This is one of the things that you have to put, like you have to be obsessed with, because you tend to do a lot of that. Ellipsis is the 3 dots. Ellipsis is the 3 dots. Okay. Yeah. You, when writing, you use a lot of them. Okay, and in a presentation, they shouldn't be there if they are not actually meaningful. But it said the app dot. Yeah, like presenting the app. I will say be a little bit of. It's not a big thing, but sorry. Yeah. Dot. So it's the kind of thing that is small, but actually you can afford to be obsessed about it and force yourself and don't put any ellipses. Okay. Also, contrast. You had most likely the most difficult environment. Okay, because the sun came up here. This is a very windowy and a very bright room. So also the environment played against you, but the same happened to Shannon, but we didn't have this problem, yeah, because it was like very contrasted, yeah. So you can still put design to things, but very contrast. And actually, that also applies for the app. So the app was the same design as the presentation, and you also can't afford to have like light gray over dark gray. The contrast is really small. Also, that's an accessibility concern, because there's like some people that with visual difficulties, they cannot tell apart that much the contrast, so they need like a kick in. Okay. Good system diagram. Okay, actually, I think that is the diagram that I enjoyed the most during today's presentation on presenting what's the thing that is going on. Just a little comment: the API goes on the server, yeah, because on the client you have the API client, yeah. But that's if you have to tell one of these two, the most important is that the API as an interface is available on the server. Cool. And also, when talking about the MVP, I think that that's a good insight about, hey, that was big, and then I had to take things away. You showed 2 diagrams, the start and the end, but unfortunately, they don't play together, because you cannot show the beginning and the end in the same slide, because they are very small. Yeah, so show only one. By the way, just a comment that is not for you, actually is actually saying sorry to the ones that are on remote and on the call, because I think that because of the system, can you confirm you were not seeing correctly any of the text that was on the screen? Is that right?
It looks like Chinese.
Sorry?
It's very low quality.
Low quality text, yes? I'm
To put
sorry.
it mildly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's my fault, and then I'm going to try to solve it for the future. I've seen it on the other computer. It was very weird. You weren't seeing this, but for the ones in the call, it was really weird. I think that there is because there is some kind of image processing between the sharing and everything that makes it like good for pictures. It's like kind of smoothing, and then it's blurring away all the text. So I'm sorry for that. So that's it. We have to work, a little bit on the getting things done, but I think that the improvement is clear. Between you have like 2 runs, no? On this second run, I think that the improvement is a lot way better, and I think that you're going to also enjoy the group now, and maybe we are going to talk about today about the group project, and I think that it's time, as we have 3 weeks, that you start the first week specializing on the thing that is your strength more than your weakness, and then we can move to the weaknesses a little bit. So I think that splitting, I think that you're going to get like really benefited by it. Cool. So Shannon, I don't know I'm supposed to say here as a feedback for a presentation. So I have no authority actually I feel like having no authority to comment about your presentation. Yeah, so because it was so good that it's like what I'm going to tell you. Like the presentation was amazing. No, the presentation come on, the presentation was amazing. You were all engaged. You were all laughing because you used humor, and it was like you took like the most out of the project that you did. Yeah, and that's what the presentation is about. It's getting juice from this product. So that was very good. You were able to explain with all the. I don't know if you, and in the end, were like more happy or more worried about your product, about your project, but it definitely showed that you were proud about it in the presentation, and that's what counts because it's what you spread, it's what you share, it's contagious. Yeah. So more than a comment for you, that was my feedback. It's a comment for others, and me included. This is how you present. Contagion, yeah, the energy that you have. So first of all, gain, like build that love for your project first. So feel proud about it, and then later spread it, yeah, show it, and be able to share it with others. Because I don't know, that works. So congratulations, that was, and you could see that. I'm not telling you. You could see that. Anyone notice what happened on Sharon's presentation? On like different to others?
It just seemed like everyone was having a good time. It was funny.
Sure.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Sure, yeah. But that's something that, for example, for a hint, that's something that you can appreciate in the room and in remote as well. Actually, I can order the presentations by this factor. The number of questions. If you sort the presentations on order factors, you will have which presentations were more engaging. Okay, not what like projects were technically more interesting. Yeah, and I think that shows, it relates. So your mission for the next presentation is to get more questions. I think that's a good KPI. Like North Star, like something to look for presentations. Okay, try to have that as a goal, and that showed. It's like your presentation, question. Yeah, comments. It's like fuck NFL or these things. Yeah. So yeah, congratulations. Cool. And also I want to extend, like, now the last one that we were talking was yours, and I say congratulations. I want to extend that to congratulations to all the seniors for the job done. We missed Josh, but I'm sure that we're going to be pleased to see the presentation next up, and we're all hyped up about seeing what Josh have prepared. So looking forward to all that. But anyway, congratulations everybody, and good job. Let's go on for celebrate, yes, and go for the next project on this order. Cool? So congratulations, everybody.